Okay, folks, we're going to talk real quickly about the 8-week functional bodybuilding hybrid program. As a brief overview of this program, this is designed for functional fitness athletes who want to primarily gain muscle mass. It's not a strength program, it's not a conditioning program, it's not designed to help your Metcon or your WODs primarily. It's designed to maintain those abilities, and it's designed to increase your muscle mass primarily. So let's get into it. The first week, if you've pulled up the download that I provided on the website, you'll see that it's a 4-day per week program, and that's important because this is a lot of volume. Even for very seasoned athletes, this amount of volume is going to be very difficult if all you've done is other functional fitness programs in the past where you just had a pretty standard strength move and then a Metcon or a WOD after that. So there's going to be much more volume in that. You can see it's split up alternatively into upper body and then lower body days primarily. On the first upper body day on week 1, we see bench press and bent over row, both 3 sets of 10, weighted dips, and dumbbell row, 3 sets of 10. And then we've got some accessory style movements with the dumbbell bicep curl and cable tricep extension. These are programmed to basically be 2 compound movements per a frontal pressing. So you've got your bench press, a weighted dip, and then you've got a rowing movement, bent over row, dumbbell row. Then you've got your accessory movements that are going to help with the other the prime movers for those. So you've got your biceps and triceps that are also getting worked. And now I recommend taking a 5 to 10 minute break between this if you're doing this in one session. And then the WOD is going to be an 8-minute AMRAP of pull-ups and power cleans. You need a little bit of rest. I also recommend a little bit of carbohydrate intake, something like a half sugar Gatorade or something with a little bit of carbohydrate in it is going to help. I found in my testing that these workouts generally took me around an hour to an hour and 20 minutes, depending on the day and just what kind of work was being done. So you're going to want to have a little bit of carbohydrate to help out on it. There's a lot of research showing that that is a beneficial thing to do. The next day, you're looking at lower body. You got a back squat and deadlift. These are 3x10, 3x6. Deadlift, I don't like to go very high on. It can be taxing. I think it kind of loses some of its main benefits. So I like to keep that fairly heavy. And then we've got a walking lunge, and that's going to be pretty heavy as well. I oftentimes get questions about what weights you should use for this. These weights should allow that you should complete these reps with the ability to maybe complete 1 or 2 more. So this isn't a max effort. This isn't strength training like you may be used to. You're not going to barely be able to finish that last rep. You should have 1 or 2 left in the tank because we're looking for volume here, not necessarily intensity in terms of percentage of 1 rep max. And then we've got a next day of upper body. This is primarily shoulder centric. You've got incline bench and a dumbbell press. You've also got a ring row and a lateral shoulder raise, as well as barbell curl for accessory movements. Again, we've got a shorter WOD. You'll notice I've kept the WODs a little shorter for this program, as it is just hard to complete this amount of lifting volume and then complete a very long or difficult WOD. So we're just trying to maintain our WOD and our Metcon ability while getting our lifts in. And our last day of that week is lower body, different version of deadlift and front squats, which I think always need to be in there. And then a little bit of abs as well. Moving on to the next week, there's really no change. We've increased, instead of 3x10s, we've got 3x12s. I often get asked, should I try for thoracics weight? Sure, you can. But remember, I would prefer that if you have an increase in reps, that you maintain the amount of try to maintain the weight if you can, but you need to keep to that rule of having 1 or 2 reps left in the tank at the end here. You'll notice that bodybuilding style training is not it's not as percentage based like strength training is. It's a little bit more feeling based. You should be able to do a rep or two at the end of all these kind of movements. So just keep that in mind. It follows the same pattern as last week: upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body, and with again 4 days per week. Moving on to the third week, this is going to be the hardest week. Instead of having 3 sets, we've increased it to 4 and gone back down to 10 reps. So if you're feeling pretty good, this training's agreeing with you, and you're recovering and eating correctly, then I would recommend that you go a little bit heavier. You're probably not super used to lifting heavy in these rep ranges, so go for broke. If you feel good and your technique's solid, go a little heavier than you think you can, and you might be surprised to figure out that you can do that. The week after that, the fourth week, for those who follow Tier 3 Tactical, you'll find that I like to keep that as a deload week. So this needs to still be intense. We're just cutting the volume roughly in half or 2/3 of the volume, something like that. So you're still having the same kind of movements. We haven't changed those, but instead of a 3x12 or 10, you're looking at a 3x8 or 3x6. The WODs, again, no real change there. Moving on to the next cycle. So 3 weeks in a deload is one cycle. Moving on to our next cycle, we've changed some of the movements. We're starting the week with a dumbbell bench press and a weighted pull-up, regular bench press, then a dumbbell row. A little bit different volumes, a little bit sets and reps. Sets and reps are a little different. So continue to stick with the 1 or 2 reps left in the tank style of training. You shouldn't be going to true maxes, and your form definitely shouldn't be breaking down these movements. I mean, it's fine to get tired. It's fine to have a bad rep every now and then, but you shouldn't be rounding your back on a deadlift or hunching over on a front squat or anything like that. Moving on, we've now increased it from like a 3x8, 3x12, 4x8. We've kept the 4x12. That's about as much volume as you really want here. Most of the research shows that for optimal hypertrophy in muscle groups for trained athletes, intermediates, whatever, it's around 40 to 60 reps at around 60 to, at the upper end, 80% or so of your 1 rep max. So we don't need huge heavy weights, and we don't need a ton of volume, but we need to get the right amount of volume, and ideally about twice per week. And that's why you kind of see why I've programmed the things that way I do. In terms of integrating the WODs, you'll see a lot of the WODs use the same muscle groups. Sometimes they're different, but most of the time they're the same kind of muscle group. So if you see a front squat 3x6, and then the WOD for that day is a death by thruster at 135. So it's the same kind of movements. You're going to use primarily legs and shoulders, and guess what? You're using them on the hypertrophy moves as well. That's just a little extra volume, and it allows you to get through all of your muscle tissue instead of just using those high threshold motor units for very powerful moves. You're getting into those lower, slower twitch fibers that are harder to fatigue traditionally without a lot of volume. So that's one of the benefits of this program. You're getting a little bit of strength work, a lot of volume, and you're working through all that muscle tissue. And again, we've worked all the way for three full weeks and then a 4th week of a deload. Deload should always be a little bit intense, and the volume should just be less. We don't need to deload with no weight or take a complete rest week or anything like that. We just need to make sure that it is reasonably heavy and you're doing a good job to recover. And I'll link to some good nutrition articles that I've written, and the calculators I use for figuring out food for athletes, as well as an article that covers some good research recommendations for actual recovery. For recovery-wise, ice baths, things like that, not super well studied, and in terms of there's no real consensus on whether you should be doing that kind of stuff. Some say yes, some say no. The most well supported recovery method I've seen is actually just going for like a very easy walk for 10 minutes after your workout, or you can do it on a bicycle or an assault bike, something like that. You want to go for like 60, 70 watts. Very easy, not out of breath. You're barely moving really, but that's going to help circulate your blood, help bring new nutrients to the tissue, and get rid of waste products out of those tissue. So that is something I always try to do, and I recommend athletes do. Incorporate about 10 minutes of that very easy type cardio at the end of your workout, or you can do it later in the day as well. If you have any questions or you have any comments, I always recommend you put those in the bottom of the um, comment section. I get a notification and I can answer those very quickly. As always, good luck. Get out there and start training.